You are making a fatal mistake right now, and you do not even realize it. Every single day, you are trading your power, your energy, and your life force for something entirely worthless. You are trading it for the approval of others. You think you are being a good man. You think you are being reliable. But let me expose a brutal paradox that only 1% of men ever truly understand. The harder you try to meet the expectations of everyone around you, the less respect they actually have for you. You become predictable. You become safe. You become a tool to be used. Today, we are going to explore a psychological transformation so profound it will completely rewrite the way you interact with reality. We are talking about who you become the exact moment you decide to stop fulfilling expectations. This is the core of modern Stoicism. This is the hidden truth about mental superiority and emotional control. Are you brave enough to disappoint the world in order to save yourself? Or will you spend another decade being a secondary character in your own life? Leave a comment right now and tell me, whose expectations are secretly running your life? Identify them. Then, prepare to destroy them. Let us establish the reality of the world you are living in. Society has designed a very specific trap for men. From the moment you are old enough to understand instructions, you are conditioned to be a utility. You are taught that your value is tied directly to what you can provide for others, how well you follow the rules, and how little noise you make while carrying your burdens. If you absorb stress without complaining, they call you strong. If you sacrifice your own goals to help someone else achieve theirs, they call you noble. But this is not nobility. This is psychological slavery dressed up as virtue. The modern man is drowning in a sea of invisible demands. Your phone buzzes relentlessly with the expectations of your boss. Your relationships demand constant emotional validation. Society expects you to act, think, and speak within a very narrow, acceptable framework. You are playing a game where the rules are constantly changing, and the only price is exhaustion. You check all the boxes. You do the right things. Yet, you feel hollow. You feel an underlying rage that you cannot quite explain. That rage is your true self, suffocating under the weight of 1,000 different expectations. The ancient Stoics knew that a man who belongs to the crowd can never belong to himself. Today, we do not need ancient quotes to understand this. We need cold, hard, emotional discipline. It is time to establish a new baseline of absolute psychological autonomy. The illusion of the promised reward. Let us dismantle the greatest lie you have ever been told. You have been led to believe that if you play by the rules, if you meet every expectation placed upon you, there will eventually be a payoff. You think your boss will suddenly recognize your endless overtime and hand you power. You think your partner will appreciate your endless sacrifices and give you ultimate peace. But look at the reality. The reward for digging the best ditch is simply a bigger shovel. The more you accommodate, the more they demand. You are pouring your vital energy into a bottomless pit. Think of a man trying to fill a bucket that has no bottom. He sweats, he works, he exhausts himself, believing that one day the bucket will overflow with the respect he deserves. It never will. The world does not reward compliance with respect. It rewards compliance with more exploitation. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. The strong man realizes the contract is rigged. He stops trying to fill the bottomless bucket. He pulls back his energy, consolidates his power, and realizes that the only reward worth having is the one he creates for himself. He destroys the illusion that obedience equals success. The architecture of the inner fortress. Once you realize the external world will drain you dry if you let it, you must begin building your defenses. We call this the inner fortress. It is a state of mind where your self-worth is entirely disconnected from external validation. Most men build their identities like houses made of glass. A single stone of criticism, a single look of disappointment from someone else, and their entire sense of self shatters. They scramble to pick up the pieces, apologizing, trying to fix things, trying to make the other person happy again. This is weakness in its purest form. Building the inner fortress means replacing that glass with solid steel. It means reaching a psychological state where someone can look you dead in the eyes, tell you they are deeply disappointed in you, and your heart rate does not even slightly elevate. Imagine a massive stone wall standing against a violent storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes out, but the stone does not care. It does not apologize for being in the way. It simply exists, immovable. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He does not negotiate the integrity of his inner fortress. His peace is not dependent on your approval. The weaponization of disappointment. As soon as you stop meeting expectations, you will face the ultimate manipulation tactic used by society: disappointment. People will not always yell at you. They will not always attack you directly. Instead, they will use the silent, heavy weapon of guilt. They will say things like, "I thought you were better than this," or "You have changed, and not for the better." This is a deliberate psychological attack designed to pull you back into their frame of control. They are losing their grip on you, and disappointment is their last, desperate attempt to tighten the leash. Most men fold immediately when they hear these words. The guilt is too heavy. They revert to their old ways just to relieve the tension. But understand this: their disappointment is not your failure. It is simply the friction of your new boundaries rubbing against their old entitlements. Think of a parasite being detached from a host. The parasite will fight to stay attached. It will cause pain. But the pain is a sign of healing. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He looks at their disappointment and feels absolutely nothing. He recognizes it as a manipulation tactic, smiles internally, and holds his ground. He is comfortable being the villain in their story if it means being the hero in his own. The paradox of respect. This is perhaps the most difficult concept for the average mind to grasp. You believe that by saying yes, by being agreeable, you are earning respect. The exact opposite is true. Human beings are biologically wired to respect boundaries, power, and scarcity. When your time, your energy, and your agreement are always available, their value drops to zero. You become spiritually cheap. But what happens when you start saying no? What happens when you draw a line in the sand and refuse to cross it, even if it makes things awkward? Initially, there is shock, but right beneath that shock, a quiet, primal respect begins to form. People do not respect what they can easily control. They respect what stands firm against them. Imagine a wild horse. A rider respects the horse precisely because it has the power to throw him off. A man who agrees to everything is a wooden rocking horse. Safe, predictable, and ultimately meant for children. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He is willing to endure temporary conflict to establish permanent respect. He knows that a no, spoken with calm, unwavering eye contact, is the most powerful masculine force in the universe. The death of the external judge. From childhood, you have carried an invisible judge in your mind. This judge is a composite of your parents, your teachers, society, and social media. Before you make a decision, before you speak, you unconsciously run it past this judge to see if it is acceptable. If the judge frowns, you censor yourself. You dilute your true thoughts. You play it safe. To become truly powerful, you must drag this invisible judge out into the light and execute it. You must realize that there is no supreme authority keeping score of how well you conform. The people you are so afraid of offending are secretly just as lost, just as insecure, and just as terrified as everyone else. Why are you allowing terrified people to dictate your reality? Imagine a prisoner who suddenly realizes the door to his cell has been unlocked for 10 years, and the guards are just mannequins. The only thing keeping him inside was his own belief in the authority of the prison. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He fires the external judge. He becomes his own supreme authority. He measures his actions not by whether they please the crowd, but by whether they align with his own uncompromising code of honor. The terrifying freedom of the void. Let me warn you about what happens immediately after you stop fulfilling expectations. It gets quiet. Very quiet. When you stop being the emotional sponge for your friends, they might stop calling. When you stop doing the jobs of 3 people at work, you might be left alone. This sudden emptiness scares the weak man back into submission. He mistakes the silence for abandonment. He rushes back to his old habits just to feel needed again. But this void is actually the most sacred space you will ever enter. This silence is the sound of the chains falling off. The void is not empty. It is a canvas waiting for you to project your true will upon it. When the noise of everyone else's demands fades away, you will finally hear the sound of your own voice. Think of a man walking out of a crowded, deafening nightclub into the cool, silent night air. At first, his ears ring. The silence feels strange. But soon, he looks up and sees the stars. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He does not fear the void. He embraces the quiet. He uses the space left by those who walked away to build an empire of his own design. The purification of your inner circle. As you stop meeting expectations, you will undergo a brutal but necessary purge of your relationships. You will discover that many of the people you thought were your friends were actually just fans of your compliance. They did not love you. They loved what you did for them. They loved how easy you made their lives. The moment you become difficult, the moment you prioritize your own mission, they will vanish. Let them go. Do not chase them. Their departure is not a loss, it is a purification. You are shedding dead weight. What remains after the purge are the rare few who respect your autonomy. These are the equals. These are the people who do not want to use you, but want to stand beside you. Imagine a tree in late autumn. The weak leaves fall away at the first sign of a cold wind, but the trunk and the deep roots remain. You must be willing to let the weak leaves fall. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He prefers a circle of one true equal over a crowd of 100 parasites. He is entirely unbothered by the departure of those who cannot handle his boundaries. The eradication of emotional reactivity. To stop fulfilling expectations, you must master your emotional reactions. The world will test your new boundaries. They will try to provoke you. They will insult you. They will mock you. They will try to make you angry. Because if they can make you angry, they can control you. Anger is an emotional response, and whoever controls your emotions controls your reality. The Stoic approach is not about suppressing anger. It is about observing the attempt to provoke you and choosing not to participate. You look at their insult the way a scientist looks at an insect under a microscope. Curious, but completely detached. Imagine a master swordsman facing a screaming, flailing amateur. The amateur swings wildly, wasting energy fueled by rage. The master barely moves, deflecting blows with minimal effort, his face completely blank. His calmness is his greatest weapon. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He is emotionally unhackable. You can hurl insults at his ego, and they will bounce off the armor of his indifference. He decides when to engage, and he never engages on someone else's terms. Finding your absolute true north. When you strip away the expectations of society, a massive question remains. What do you actually want? Most men do not know the answer. They have spent so long working toward the goals of others that their own desires have completely atrophied. They want the car society tells them to want. They want the lifestyle Instagram tells them to want. To become truly dangerous, you must discover your absolute true north, an internal compass that points only toward your authentic purpose. This requires ruthless self-interrogation. What are you willing to suffer for? What brings you a deep, quiet sense of power, completely independent of applause? Think of a captain navigating the ocean. If he listens to the passengers shouting different directions, the ship will sink. He must lock his eyes on the North Star and ignore the chaos on the deck. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He operates on a mission that is so deeply rooted in his core that neither praise nor criticism can sway him. He moves with the silent momentum of a freight train, unstoppable, inevitable, and completely indifferent to the opinions of the passengers. The weaponization of silence. One of the biggest mistakes you make when trying to establish boundaries is over-explaining. When you say no to an expectation, you feel a compulsive need to justify it. You offer a long list of reasons, excuses, and apologies. You do this because you still crave their understanding. You still want them to think you are a good guy. But every time you explain yourself, you are handing them ammunition. You are giving them a chance to argue, to find a loophole in your logic, to guilt you into changing your mind. Power lies in silence. A simple, flat no requires no explanation. It stands on its own. Imagine a king on a throne. When he makes a decree, he does not hand out a pamphlet explaining his feelings. He speaks the word, and the silence that follows enforces it. When someone asks you to do something that violates your time or energy, say no, and then simply look at them. Let the silence stretch. Let them squirm in the quiet. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He understands that his refusal is a complete sentence. He does not negotiate his boundaries, and he never apologizes for prioritizing his own peace. The true definition of masculine duty. Society has twisted the concept of masculine duty. They have convinced you that duty means being a beast of burden for everyone else's problems. They tell you that a real man carries the emotional baggage of his partner, the financial incompetence of his family, and the unfair workloads of his colleagues. This is a perversion of duty. True Stoic duty is fundamentally directed inward before it is directed outward. Your first and most sacred duty is the cultivation of your own character, your own strength, and your own psychological stability. If the foundation of the house is crumbling because it is trying to hold up the houses next door, eventually they all collapse. Imagine a pillar in a grand hall. Its only job is to stand straight and bear its own load. It does not bend to help the other pillars. Its rigidity is its contribution. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He refuses to take responsibility for the emotional states or the poor decisions of other adults. He is intensely responsible for his own actions and coldly detached from the drama of the crowd. He leads by example, not by emotional servitude. Mastering the art of comfortable disappointment. You must learn to sit comfortably in the discomfort of others. When you stop fulfilling expectations, people will be upset. They will pout. They will throw subtle tantrums. The weak man feels a desperate urge to fix this. He cannot stand the tension in the room. He will compromise his own soul just to make the other person smile again. You must train yourself to observe their displeasure without absorbing it. Their bad mood is not your emergency. Their inability to handle a boundary is a reflection of their emotional immaturity, not a reflection of your cruelty. Think of a solid rock in a rushing river. The water crashes against it, turning white with foam and fury. The river is upset, but the rock does not soften. It simply lets the water rush by until the river tires itself out. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He can sit in a room with someone who is furious at his refusal, and he can calmly drink his coffee, his internal heart rate resting at a cool 60 beats per minute. He has mastered the art of letting others be upset. The emergence of the dangerous man. There is a specific term for a man who wants nothing from the crowd, fears no judgment, and acts entirely on his own accord. He is dangerous. He is dangerous because he cannot be leveraged. How do you control a man who does not care if you like him? How do you manipulate a man who is perfectly happy to walk away from the table? You cannot. He breaks the fundamental mechanics of societal control. The system relies on your fear of rejection. Once you eliminate that fear, you become an anomaly. You become a glitch in their matrix. Imagine a wolf walking through a town of domesticated dogs. The dogs bark, perform tricks for treats, and obey commands. The wolf just watches them with cold, yellow eyes. He does not want the treats. He does not understand the tricks. He only understands his own hunger and his own territory. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He cultivates a quiet, dangerous independence. He operates outside the reward system of the masses. People intuitively sense this, and it commands an immediate primal respect that cannot be faked. The financial and professional advantage. This mindset does not just bring psychological peace, it brings massive professional power. In the business world, the man who is desperate to please is the man who gets exploited. He takes on the grunt work, he accepts the low pay, he stays late hoping to be noticed. But the man who operates without the need to fulfill arbitrary expectations becomes a natural leader. He speaks his mind in meetings without fear of the boss's ego. He negotiates coldly, fully prepared to walk away if his value is not met. Business is a game of leverage, and the one who needs the deal the least always holds the power. Think of a poker game. The man sweating, nervously glancing at the chips, desperate to win approval, has already lost. The man leaning back, eyes dead, completely indifferent to winning or losing that specific hand, is the one who controls the table. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He brings his unbothered, stoic frame into the marketplace. He commands high value exactly because he refuses to cheapen himself with the desperation of a people pleaser. The magnetism of genuine indifference. There is a profound shift in how you are perceived romantically and socially when you drop expectations. Most men interact with women and peers through a lens of performance. They are constantly adjusting their behavior to get a specific reaction. This reeks of insecurity. It is needy, and neediness is the ultimate repellent. But when you adopt the Stoic frame, you interact with the world with genuine indifference. You are not trying to impress anyone. You speak your truth, you act according to your nature, and you let the chips fall where they may. This creates a powerful magnetic pull. People are drawn to the man who does not seem to need them. Imagine a massive planet with its own strong gravitational pull. It does not chase the moons around it, it simply exists in its massive state, and the moons are forced to orbit it. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest.
He becomes the center of his own gravity. He stops chasing validation, and paradoxically, validation begins to chase him. But by the time it reaches him, he no longer cares about it. The elimination of future anxiety. When you live to fulfill expectations, you live in a constant state of future anxiety. You are always playing out scenarios in your head. What if I do this? Will they get mad? What if I fail to meet this standard? Will I be rejected? Your mind is trapped in a future that has not happened, fighting ghosts that do not exist. Stoicism teaches us to sever the timeline. You only control the present action, not the future reaction. When you stop caring about how others will judge your actions, the anxiety vanishes. You do what is logically and morally correct in this exact moment, and you let the future handle itself. Think of a warrior stepping onto the battlefield. If he is worried about what the king will say if he loses, he will hesitate, and he will die. If he focuses only on the swing of his sword in the present second, he becomes a force of nature. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He cuts the tether to the future. He operates with total presence, free from the paralyzing fear of what other people might think tomorrow. The reclamation of your time and energy. Time is the only currency you cannot earn back. Every time you say yes to an expectation you secretly resent, you are burning your most precious resource. You are letting others spend your life for you. The Stoic realizes that his time is finite. He guards his schedule with ruthless aggression. He understands that an hour spent appeasing an annoying acquaintance is an hour stolen from his own physical training, his own mental development, or his own absolute rest. To stop fulfilling expectations is to take back the ledger of your life. Imagine a vault filled with gold coins. Every day, people walk by and ask for a coin. For years, you just handed them out, wanting to be liked. Now, the vault door is locked. Only you hold the key. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He treats his time, energy, and attention as elite commodities. He does not give them away to anyone who has not earned them through genuine respect and mutual value. The Stoic willpower to choose the difficult path. It is important to clarify that stopping the fulfillment of expectations does not mean becoming lazy. It is actually the exact opposite. Living by society's expectations is the easy, cowardly path. You just follow the herd. To reject the herd and forge your own path requires immense, brutal willpower. It means you must set your own standards, and these standards must be infinitely higher than anything society would ask of you. You stop waking up early because your boss demands it, and you start waking up early because your own soul demands discipline. You move from external motivation to internal tyranny. Think of a captive lion released into the wild. In the cage, the zookeeper fed him. It was easy, but he was a slave. In the wild, he must hunt. It is harder. It is violent, but he is a king. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He rejects the comfortable cage of external expectations and gladly accepts the harsh, demanding wilderness of absolute self-reliance. The absolute silence of internal validation. As you walk this path, you will eventually reach a state of deep psychological mastery. You will no longer feel the spike of dopamine when someone praises you, and you will no longer feel the sting of cortisol when someone insults you. You achieve a flat line of emotional stability. You know exactly who you are, what you are capable of, and what your flaws are. Because you have already judged yourself fairly and harshly,
The judgments of others become completely irrelevant noise. Imagine a deep ocean. On the surface, there are storms, massive waves, and chaos. But miles below, in the deep water, it is pitch black, silent, and completely undisturbed by the weather above. This is the mind of the advanced Stoic. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest. He lives in the deep water. The praise and the hatred of the world are just storms on the surface. They do not touch his core.
He is a master of the silent depths.
The final evolution of character. This is the end game. When you completely sever the invisible strings of societal expectations, you undergo a metamorphosis. You evolve from a reactor to a creator. A reactor simply responds to whatever the world throws at him, dodging, apologizing, pleasing. A creator dictates the terms of reality. He walks into a room, and instead of adjusting his frequency to match the room adjusts its frequency to match his absolute calm. This is the highest level of masculine existence. You become an immovable object in a world of frantic, anxious movement. You become the man who needs nothing, fears no judgment, and walks his path with cold, brilliant clarity. Imagine a mountain. It does not try to be a forest. It does not apologize for blocking the wind. It simply dominates the landscape by the sheer fact of its unyielding existence. Here is what separates a strong man from the rest.
He has become the mountain. He has stopped fulfilling expectations, and in doing so, he has fulfilled his ultimate destiny. He has become completely, dangerously free.
This is the ultimate culmination of Stoic power. The moment you decide to stop fulfilling the hollow expectations of a weak society, you stop surviving and finally begin to exist. You forge an armor that no insult, no guilt trip, and no manipulation can pierce. The crowd will call you selfish. The weak will call you cold. But you will know the truth. You have simply reclaimed the throne of your own mind. You have stepped into the elite fraction of men who dictate their own reality. I want to thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, you are already operating on a frequency that most will never understand. Now, take this knowledge and weaponize it in your daily life. Do not just listen to this and go back to being a people pleaser. Start saying no. Start enjoying the silence. Subscribe to this channel, join the top 1% of minds, and continue building your unbreakable inner fortress.
Leave a comment below with a single word, unbreakable, so I know who the real strategists are. Stay cold, stay focused, reclaim your power.